Hello, and welcome to another episode where we talk about the characters in my book. Today we're going to talk about King Edward. So we're moving on into the adults a little bit now. Now, King Edward is the King of Warren. He is the father of Alex and the ally and best friend of King Emeric of Dayton. He is also Aaron's godfather. So, at the beginning of book one, Edward is 40 years old. So he was 23 when Alex was born. He was born in the castle in Warren to his mother Elizabeth and his father Arthur. Now, sadly, Elizabeth died during childbirth, so when Edward was born, his mother died giving birth to him, leaving him alone with his father Arthur, who we know is kind of a horrible person. So Edward actually was raised a lot by his uncle. His mother Elizabeth had an older brother, Bruno, and him and his wife raised Edward a lot when Arthur was off fighting the Betruger with either Emeric or Emeric's father, Jonathan. And so because of that, Edward grew very close to his uncle and his cousin Matthias. And because of that, when Aaron runs into a similar situation having issues with his own father, that's one of the main reasons that Edward always lets Aaron come and hide in Warren when he needs it, because he had that gift from his uncle. And so when Aaron is struggling with his relationship with his own father, Edward gives back the way that he was helped by letting Aaron hide in Warren whenever he needs to. So we know that Edward is a very kind man. He's a very good king. He really takes care of his people. He believes in equality among the nobles and the peasants and all of that. He actually is the one who founded the Second Council in Warren. They have the council where the nobles and the advisors and that meet with the king and give recommendations. But he started a council when he became, when his father became ill and he became acting king. He started the council where all the highest ranking of every job in the kingdom also are on a council. So that way he can know what's happening with the different jobs and things. So he knows what's happening at the port, he knows what's happening with the farms, with the medicals, with the merchants, with the stores, this kind of stuff. He has the highest ranking people in those different skill sets, regardless of their gender, regardless of their position in life. And so he always knows who needs help from what. And then it allows the different merchants and the different levels of workers and that to help each other out, which is something he wanted, to have that bonding in the different levels and workforces and that, and it turned out really great. So he started this, and so because of this, he's very even-tempered, he's very kind, he's very thoughtful, and as you'll see in the book, he really thinks things through. He's very cautious of how he does things. He doesn't want to push Alex too hard into her relationship with him. He's very cautious, lets her come to him. He's always been a very thoughtful and kind person like this. So what we see a lot in book one is that he is very much a loving father. While he doesn't push her, and that you can see the second that he comes home that he is completely in love with his daughter. He's still kind of technically finding his footing as being the official king of Warren because he was acting king for so many years, but didn't officially become king until his father died suddenly from illness. Well, not suddenly, but finally. And so because of that, we get to see this not so sure of himself king in book one, who tends to allow Emeric to make a lot of the decisions simply because Emeric is the more seasoned king, and Edward is too busy trying to make Warren what he wants it to be, but also trying to reconnect with his daughter now that she is finally home after 12 years. And so what makes Edward this type of a person is that his father was incredibly violent and abusive, which you see a little bit of in the prequel, where we see the way he talks to Aaron in front of Emeric, and that Edward actually has to step between his father and Aaron, putting himself in his own father's line of anger rather than letting Aaron be the one to bear the brunt of his father's anger. So he grew up being belittled and handled by his father, however his father saw fit, and because of that, he does not want to end up like his own father. He works very hard to remain even-tempered, to be a good man, to be thoughtful and patient with his people, because he doesn't want to turn out like his father did. So especially with Alex, he wants to be a different kind of father than his own father was, which is one of the reasons he gives her so much more freedom than a king probably should give to their daughter. Having been sheltered and smothered so badly by his own father, he does not want to do that to Alex. So he allows her these freedoms, which probably goes a little bit, he's swinging the pendulum the other way. His father was too controlling and too restrictive to him, so he actually ends up letting Alex be a little bit too free and having a little bit too much decisions on her own, simply because he does not want to be like his own father. But one of the things that we don't see in the book, but I can tell you, is that his father really wanted him to remarry after Victoria died and Alex vanished, because they needed an heir, and Edward outright refused. He simply refused to ever remarry or have other children, because he always believed that Alex was alive and that he was not going to forsake his love to Victoria and remarry and come up with some random heir. He refused to do that. He missed his friend Matthias, he missed Victoria so much, he was not going to take away Alex's title because he knew she would come home one day. He had absolute faith, and so he focused on being a good king so that she would have a good kingdom and a good father to come home to. Because that's what he was. He wasn't willing to give up his love for Victoria, and he was not willing to have another child who would then risk taking his daughter's throne. Because that kid could have turned out like his dad too, so no. But yeah, so Edward is a very kind, mild-mannered king. He grows a lot in the series. He finds his footing more in his kingdom. He learns that maybe sometimes being a more strict parent is not a bad thing, and he finds a good balance with Alex for that. So yeah, he is one of my favorite characters. He is a delight to write. I also love that. Yeah, I think he's my favorite dad in the entire book, just because he's kind and he's loving, and for all the parent examples we see, he is the most modern thinking and the most outgoing parent in that. So yeah, so that's King Edward. I hope you learned something new. And if you've got any questions about him or any of the other characters in my book, drop them in the comments and I would be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day and happy reading. Bye!